But I'm grateful I've done it because I've had several people come by my booth and take pictures of my things and ask me how I made it, and also ask me, do you have a patent on it yet? To my face. Not kidding.
What?
So
How? What?
people try to
Ugh.
swipe ideas. Hi everyone, welcome to Behind the Booth. I'm Jade, and with me as always is my co-host and I want to call you my sponsor, but that makes me feel like I'm an AA, my producer, Heather.
And on this channel we talk about wild stories from Comic-Con vendors because we are Comic-Con vendors. We have lists of everywhere that we're going to be, all those beautiful things you see behind Jade or what she sells, and we would love to meet you and show you some of the products and also just talk about being a Comic-Con vendor because there's so much that goes into it.
Mhm.
But speaking of all the stuff that you see behind Jade, this is going to be a pretty hefty topic because there's a lot that goes into it. I know basically nothing about this. I know like the teeniest amount, but having patents, trademarks, and all stuff like that, like especially if you are creating a new product that people don't already have, you got to be able to protect yourself. And there's there's resources out there to find out what you do, but or how to do it, but it's really hard to kind of cobble it all together. So Jade, like she did trademark or patent, I don't know, what did you do? Oh yeah, so just go ahead and start there. Like what did you even do with your product and how did you get that started?
Yeah, so when you invent something that's never been made before, there is a process to it. The reason you need a patent, and again, I'm not a patent lawyer, I'm not any kind of lawyer, I am an artist, and that is what I know how to do well. So for additional details, definitely consult with a professional. What I ended up needing is a way to protect it while I was showing it off and seeing if there was a market for it. And when it comes to things like that, basically, if you don't have something patented, if you don't have a way to protect it, anyone else that sees it, takes pictures of it, or buys it can then patent it and prevent you from ever making it, using it, or taking claim to it. And you hear stories about that. There's a story from somebody that we knew who he claimed a lot of things, but he claimed to have invented a certain type of exercise equipment that he took to a trade show and somebody bought and then remade and then made millions off of it. There's also things, if you've ever seen the show F is for Family, spoiler alert, the mother invents that like salad dryer thing for
The
basically like a
spinner?
yeah, the spinner for
Yeah.
a Tupperware company, and gets that swiped from her. So there are $1 million ideas out there, and this can be something that not only takes care of you, but can take care of your family, your children. I mean, these types of things, these residual patents can pave the way. There's a lot of details that goes into it, the type of patent it is, what it's used for. So I learned a lot. I read several law books on patent law, how to do it yourself. The reason I didn't hire somebody to do it for me, like a lawyer, is that the quotes that I got for my design were between $10,000 and $15,000. And this is
Good
not
Lord.
something like a car where you can like pay them per month. They want it all at once. And a lot of times they want it before they even look at your stuff. And that was just not feasible for me. And that's just for them to do their job. That doesn't mean that that includes any of the drawings that need to be done, any of the money they have to file with, anytime they have a rejection, their time for handling the rejection and then refiling and the fines for that. That was just for them to look at my patent and to really put it together. So I had to do it all myself, which I do not recommend. I'm very fortunate that I do have a college degree, a 4-year degree. My husband has one. He and I are both very intelligent people. We're able to research, and actually, surprisingly, the patent office was very helpful. They were very kind and flexible and were there to help us file your own. You should, legally speaking, you should be able to do it by yourself. You should not have to hire a lawyer. It's just so much easier if you do,
Yeah.
and they know all the ins and outs. So the first thing you do is basically your and I have to look up this word again, Heather, but it's basically you put it out there that you want to put a patent together,
Okay.
and they secure you for 1 year. So anyone can do this. I think I paid like $200 for it, which at the time was a lot for me because I was still making stuff and I hadn't sold a single one. So your first step when you're applying for a patent is to get your provisional application to patent. And what that really ends up meaning at the end of the day is that you have an idea. Um, there is a list of things that they will give you, and literally you can go to the website and see what that is. And it's a government website. And they can say, look at these things, try to find things that are similar. Because if somebody else has already made something that's similar to it,
Yeah.
you won't get your patent. And it's
Yeah.
just a waste of time and money. So you're kind of expected to do some of the legwork to look for things that are like it. And then there's just literally a list of questions that you answer. So it's things like, what is it used for? What is it made out of? What possible uses could it ever have? Um, and that's where you get into some of the things like, for example, aspirin. Uh, Aspirin was originally invented for a completely different reason than what it's used for today. And there's a whole story behind it. But basically, the guy that owned the company, it was Bear, Mr. Bear, as in Bear Aspirin, saw one of his employees one day using some byproduct on his hands from his factory. And he's like, what are you doing? And he says, oh, it makes my hands hurt less. I'm in less pain when I work. And so they figured out, oh, that's actually can be used as aspirin. That's what he actually became famous for.
Hmm.
But it was a byproduct at the time. So there are things like that that you want to try and cover in this provisional thing. Um, so that you fill out all these questions, you fill out all these answers, and you want it to be as direct but explanatory as possible. And that is very hard to do, to write it in a way that is going to, you can't just say, like, it's good for origami. That doesn't tell them anything.
Yeah.
You have to really specifically talk about it, what steps it are to use it. And you can't submit, generally speaking, pictures of the thing or videos. You have to submit drawings. And fortunately, I know how to draw and I already made one so I could literally trace it. But they want
Yeah.
specific views and vantage points. It has to be in blue or black ink. It can't have, like, there's a lot of things. But you think about it when they're saying, oh, yeah, hire an artist, they'll put it in, a 3D modeling, blah, blah, blah program. Like, patents have been going on since the beginning of friggin' time.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the old patents of like the light bulb or the spring, and they're hand drawn. So that's basically what I did is I looked at all those. So it was a lot of research in the first steps. And you file and you'll find out if you get rejected. They're not terribly nice about the rejection letter. It's kind of like college all over again. Like, oh, I didn't make it in. You,
No, you
uh,
suck.
basically, no, you suck. Someone's already done this. But if you make it past that first part, you have a year to file the official patent application. And that application is very difficult, has a lot of ins and outs, and that's usually what people hire lawyers to do.
Yeah.
Um, and have professional drawings done, and you have exactly 1 year. Filing for extension was not an option for us, so most people take that and say, okay, I hire a lawyer and they'll have a year to do it, or have 6 months to get 10,000, 12,000, $15,000, and then hire somebody to do it. That was not something that we could do. So we spent a year, actually almost exactly a year, studying, learning everything, talking to people, anyone who would talk to us, anyone who's ever had a patent who would talk to us. And then it just goes into patent pending, which is where we are now. But I'm grateful I've done it because I've had several people come by my booth and take pictures of my things and ask me how I made it, and also ask me, do you have a patent on it yet? To my face. Not kidding.
What?
So
How? What?
people try to
Ugh.
swipe ideas. And this only protects us technically in the US. If you want to have your patent go overseas, there's a whole nother form you have to fill out. And there's a whole other series of things, but it'll tell you in your paperwork, this is what it will cover. And then if somebody infringes upon your patent, then you have to take them to court. Then you have to hire a lawyer to send them a cease and desist and blah, blah, blah. And that's how you get knockoffs. That's how you get a lot of things that are like, that's why whenever you see something that's advertised like the original stencilgami, the original whatever, that way it's not the knockoff, it's the real one. It's the first one that was ever made. So that kind of thing happens. And anytime somebody comes out with something new, like even something like a new car component, when Honda comes out with a new car component, they have to patent it. They just have an easier time doing it because they're bigger and they can get expedited. Patents take a
Yeah.
couple of years. Sometimes they can take up to 10 years. And the only ways you can get it expedited is if it is medical. That's one thing I did learn that was really cool. So if it
Yeah.
is a
That's good.
vaccine or a cure to something, they can get expedited. But the types of patents, there are three types of patents that I saw over and over again. And they were so crazy to me. The third one was weird. There is like a functional patent, there's like a design patent, and then there's a plant patent. I kid you not, a plant, like as in like growing stuff, like as
Uh-huh.
in Eva and Wally, plant, right? Plant patent. And I was like, what is that? And it's literally making different types of plants. You can patent plants. I was like, I would have never thought of that. That's crazy. Um, but yeah, so patents are very hard, but I highly recommend them if you've invented something. If you have just designed something, so like my little cherry blossoms that I have that I made into the pride flags, these are copywritten and they're copywritten within the design and they are trademarked. So what that really means is that if other people take my design, I can send them a letter saying, hey, please don't make my stuff anymore without my permission. Now, let's say Heather wants to make my design in bumper stickers or into flags or something. She could contact me and say, hey, I would like to do that. How much do I need to pay you in royalties for me to do that? Or can I buy your copyright? There's a lot of ways to do that. And you say, sure. So like there's some things like I would never want to make those out of scrap metal, but somebody else might. So they can contact me and say, hey, I'm a metalist. I would like to do this. And be like, sure, I want this percent. Same thing can work with your patent. If somebody wants to produce my fish or buy it from me, like let's say Disney wants to buy my idea, they can do that, and then that goes into negotiations and the patent's transferred. So there's a lot of ways to kind of do these things. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so confirm that there's different ways that this can happen, but it's just to protect your artwork and just protect your things. Now it's kind of an unspoken bond between artists that we don't take each other's stuff, we don't take each other's designs, but that doesn't prevent everyone from doing it. So that's why you want those things. And then trademarking is just, it's usually like things like a phrase or kind of like how you have it's the Midas touch or whatever, like jingles and things like that. By the way, Midas, if you want to sponsor us, it's talkbehindthebooth@gmail.com. Any of those things can be trademarked. And so a lot of content will be trademarked or copywritten. So it just kind of depends on what it is. But again, if you have any questions like this, there are business consultants. You can go to any of the government websites are free. You can call any of them and not have to pay anything. You can check on things like LegalZoom and other types of online options. You can file through them as well if you don't know how to do it. My first patent application I did through LegalZoom because they literally walk you through it. And it was worth it to me to have somebody who knew what they were doing help me through the process. And then just paying for everything online. One thing that I thought was kind of surprising is that when you file your patent, they want you to file it online through PDFs. They don't want you to mail things in anymore. If you mail it in, it's an additional $500.
Whew.
I know.
Yeah.
I think they just have to digitize it or store it. I'm not really sure what they have to do. So it was much cheaper to do it digitally, which is very unusual. Usually you have to pay
Right.
more for that. So just be careful on using some of the, I used a specific trademark company, and they had a lot of fine print where they would start charging you for things and services that you don't need. So be
Yeah.
very careful if you use an online source like that to not be charged things that you don't want or pay for. And it just comes with your trademark. It comes with the thing you bought, and then they start charging you afterwards. So be very aware of that.
Read everything. We say this multiple times about
Read
pretty much
everything.
everything we do, but do it. Like this is serious stuff. And if you're wanting to make sure that this actually happens, just read it all. Like it takes a little bit more time out of your day to make sure that you're doing it right and that you're not, going to then be charged a lot that you're not expecting later. So, like it's worth your time.
And some artists have been licensing their things, and that is a completely different conversation. I have not done that. But when you think about things like Canva, where you have access to a bunch of gifts and things like that, artists have been paid to do that, and you can use that stuff. If it hasn't been given to a site like that, and you're copying pictures off of Google, or if you're taking pictures at events and then using them for your own stuff, that is an infringement. So just be aware, and I hate to say it like this, but try to be respectful of these people's content unless you talk to them and say, hey, can I take this picture? I want to do something for Pride Month and I'll mention you as the designer.
Yeah.
That is, again, it's a conversation. It can absolutely be done. And if they say no, you have to respect the no with that kind of stuff, because just because we're out there displaying our stuff does not give consent for our stuff to be reused. And that's just something that is not always well understood. Now, I've always given people permission. I was like, yeah, use my stuff. Just make sure you mention us. That'd be great. Tag us, because it's getting my stuff out there. But I don't allow them to use it for like reproduction or printing or anything like that. Unless there's like a contract or something in the way for that. So generally speaking, this stuff can be very complicated. Figuring out what kind of patent you need, what kind of trademark you need, what type of copyright you need. There's a lot of ins and outs of that, but just do your research and just try to
Yeah.
protect your stuff because you do not want someone else to make their billions and millions off of your blood, sweat, and tears. That
Yeah.
is something that should not happen to you.
And like we talked about with like insurance and taxes and everything, don't be afraid to ask somebody like ask a professional. Like we said, we are not professionals, and so please do not take our word for all of this. Like I'm sure it's completely different in other areas. So like ask somebody who really knows what they're doing. And also as a caveat also, like you don't have to invent something to have a booth. If this is really intimidating you out of having a booth because you're like, I don't have that brain, I don't have that brain, I can't invent a child's toy, like I don't even know, like I can barely handle my kids toys, like I can't make a new one. And so that is absolutely not something that you have to do. A lot of people, a lot of vendors, even artists aren't creating something new. They're selling their art, they're selling other products that other people create.
Mhm.
So that is absolutely not something that you have to do to be a vendor. Don't let this intimidate you away from it. But there are people like Jade who have come up with something completely new and completely, I mean, we didn't say what it actually is, but if you come to our booth you will see it. But you see those fish back there, they were made by her stencil gami. And like I will tell you, I can't do origami because I don't know why. It just is not how my brain works, but I can do these and they're beautiful and they're really fun. So like it was really important for her to make sure that she is protected, because I hate that somebody asked you, have you patented it? Like,
Mhm. I've had
interesting.
multiple people
You
ask me that.
turd.
Yeah, it's
Get
happened
out of
more than
here.
once. Yeah.
Stop taking
And
pictures, you weirdo. Oh
yeah,
my
it's
goodness.
crazy. It's crazy the world that we live in. And like I said, I have a lot of vendors and people tell me about how people from other countries will come to these events and take pictures and
Mm,
then make them in their countries. And there's not
interesting.
much we can do about that unless you have an international patent, which a lot of us don't. And
Yeah.
sometimes even if there is patent infringement, there's not a lot you can do about it in other countries.
Right.
It's very, very common. So, to protect yourself as much as you can in your current country is always very helpful. And, hopefully it never happens to you. I
Yeah.
hope it doesn't happen to me. I hope it happens to nobody, but it can. So, just protect yourself, do your best. And if you have questions, contact that professional and
Yep.
don't be afraid to show off your products and things. Just get that patent pending started and
Yeah.
you'll be in pretty good shape.
We hope to see you at a booth soon with your new invention.
Thanks so much for joining us, and a special thank you to Nerdy Girl Podcast for sponsoring this episode. We'll see you next time.